What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin. Before we get into the video today, I do want to let you know that we are going to be live tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, to talk not only about the trade deadline, but also watch the Red Sox-Astros game together. If you haven't been to a single live stream yet, this is the one to go to. It should be a ton of fun and one of the most interesting streams we've had on this channel yet. Again, that is 7:30 p.m. Eastern time today, Tuesday, to not only watch the Red Sox-Astros, but to talk about the deadline. Hope to see you there. Anyways, for those of you who thought Pham was going to do nothing at the trade deadline, boy, were we wrong. There was a ton of stuff that happened last night on Monday, and it's not even the trade deadline yet. I'm probably expecting to make at least one more video today recapping all the trades that happened, at least one. So this is probably part one of, I would guess, 3, but at the bare minimum 2. Some of the trades made last night were interesting, some of them were way less interesting, and some of them that just plain hurt. So we're going to talk about all of them today. We're going to talk about every move that the Red Sox made and what their return was and why they may have decided to do this. But before we get into that, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys are hitting the like button on this video as well. It helps it out a ton and would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about each trade from least interesting to most interesting, because I think the one at the end we're going to talk about, the most interesting trade in my opinion, is the one that I'm going to have the most opinions on, and I think you guys are going to too. So let's start with the least interesting ones, get those out of the way. And the first one being Jake Diekman was traded to the Chicago White Sox in exchange for Reese McGuire, a player to be named later, or cash consideration. So they definitely got Reese McGuire, but the player to be named later or cash considerations will be figured out at a later date. Now, for those of you who don't know, Reese McGuire isn't exactly the most pristine guy off the field. If you want to know what I'm talking about, I'm not going to go into detail on this video, mostly because I really don't want to lose my monetization status, to be honest with you. So if you want to look up what Reese McGuire is like off the field, go ahead and Google that for yourself. I promise you, you'll be able to find it pretty quickly. But on the field, Reese McGuire is not exactly anything to get excited about. This year for the Chicago White Sox, he's hitting .255 with a 55 OPS plus, meaning he's about half as good as the average player in baseball in 151 at-bats. The big reason I believe that Reese McGuire was traded to the Red Sox because for the rest of the year, his salary is $225,000. That is, in my opinion, the definition of a salary dump. And this is kind of a good thing. This is kind of the first time we've seen Pham genuinely admit that the person he signed was not a good fit for the Red Sox. Jake Diekman was signed to a 2-year, $8 million deal, and he has been absolutely terrible for us this year. Can't seem to figure it out with the Red Sox. So being able to get rid of this guy before the trade deadline for someone who can at least be catcher depth within the system is a really great move, in my opinion. Regardless of whether or not Reese is a good guy on or off the field, he will be decent depth in this Red Sox system. I don't think that this is going to be making any splashes on the Red Sox anytime soon. I really don't think Reese is going to have a major role for the Red Sox. So in my opinion, this trade was fully rooted in the fact that the Red Sox are going to need catching depth, and we will get to that later, trust me, and the fact that they were able to dump so much of their average annual value with Jake Diekman onto the Chicago White Sox. The next guy we're going to talk about is Pham, who was traded to the Red Sox for a player to be named later. According to most sources, the player to be named later doesn't seem to be a top prospect, so that's a good thing, and Pham's an interesting move. First things first, I do have to give a quick shout out to Eric Yeager, who has been saying that the Red Sox are going to trade for Pham, I think since like mid-May. It was pretty impressive. So shout out to you, Eric. This may be the first and last time I ever shout you out on this channel. But anyways, Pham is a very interesting move, but it does kind of make sense. It fits a need. Right now, every single one of our starting outfielders, with Kike being hurt, is a left-handed hitter. So to bring in a right-handed hitter who historically has had some success is a decent idea. Pham is not exactly having the best year in the world right now, hitting .238 with a 694 OPS and an 88 OPS plus, slightly below league average in terms of OPS plus, but he also does have 5 defensive run saves. And on top of that, he is hitting .290 against lefties right now. And that is something that we've been begging for the Red Sox to do since the beginning of the year, right? Since it was announced that Christian Arroyo was going to be platooning with Jackie Bradley Jr., everyone kind of saw the writing on the wall with that one. As much as I love Christian Arroyo, he wasn't exactly a stellar defender out there. So to bring in a guy for considerably extremely low cost, we'll see who that exact player to be named later is, and and not a ton of salary makes a lot of sense in my opinion. It could also mean that Jackie Bradley Jr. is now the 4th outfielder, which again is another thing the Red Sox fans have been begging Chaim Bloom to do since the beginning of this year. So in my opinion, this trade is pretty interesting because it means that the Red Sox are trying to upgrade in some areas, and we're about to talk about downgrades in others. But all in all, I think this was a good trade for the Red Sox to bring in Tommy Pham. Regardless of his batting average, if they just platoon him against lefties, it could be a really great addition to this Red Sox lineup. Now let's talk about the one I know you all want to talk about. Christian Vazquez was traded to the Houston Astros last night, right before the Red Sox started their series with the Houston Astros, in exchange for 2 prospects, Emmanuel Valdez and Wilyer Abreu. Now, before we talk about what the Red Sox got in exchange for Christian Vazquez, I think we need to take a second and really appreciate what Christian Vazquez has done for this Red Sox team. Christian was drafted in 2008. He spent his entire career with the Red Sox spanning that time. He ended up making his major league debut in 2014. And Christian Vazquez, I'm not sure if many of you remember, was a guy who once drafted and going through the minor leagues was profiled as at best a backup catcher. He was a defensive first catcher his entire year through the minors, and once he broke out into the majors, he became a little bit of a different story. Christian Vazquez really developed and settled into that role as the everyday Red Sox starting catcher and has had some extremely great moments for the Red Sox. He spent 2014 through this year with the Boston Red Sox, making him the longest active player with this Red Sox team. Christian Vazquez was a part of so many great moments with this team. He was a part of the 2018 run, one of the greatest Red Sox teams of all time. He had some huge moments in the playoffs last year, and in general, Christian Vazquez was never known as the best hitter on the team, but he was always one of the most clutch. I will always remember Christian Vazquez as the 2nd most important Red Sox catcher of my lifetime, right behind Jason Varitek. And with him having the 5th most caught games for the Red Sox in history, I think that's the case with a lot of people. And if you think about it, right, a lot of these kids that are growing up 9, 10, 11 years old, they have known nothing but Christian Vazquez. So in my opinion, this is a really sad day. I understand the business behind trading and behind baseball teams, right? You can't keep every single player, but Christian Vazquez felt like he was going to be a Red Sox for life. So to see him go was really hard to handle. It sucks even more that he's going to be on the Astros, but at least he's going to be on a team that should be competitive all year and has a legitimate chance to take down the New York Yankees. My hope is that in Game 7 of the ALCS, Christian Vazquez hits the game-winning home run. That would make me feel so good, and there is still a chance that we pick him back up in free agency, but take a look at John Lester and tell me how well that worked out. Either way, the return for Christian Vazquez was actually a pretty interesting return, definitely the most interesting of these 3 trades. According to Baseball America, Valdez is the Astros' 12th highest rated prospect, and he has been tearing it up in the minor leagues this year. Between AA and AAA this year, Valdez is hitting .327 with 21 home runs and an OPS of 1.016. He played third, second base, and outfield throughout the minors in both leagues, and in my opinion, it feels most likely that he will end up as an outfielder. This is actually a guy that we could see spend a couple of weeks in AAA with the Red Sox and get called up by the end of August. So we may see how the return for Christian Vazquez works out almost immediately, which is kind of cool. We never really see that with Chaim Bloom, going after these higher rated prospects in their system to try and get guys to have an immediate impact on this team. So a little bit of a different move by Chaim, but I really like this guy. I think he's got a power speed combo that could work really well in Fenway Park. The second guy that was involved in this trade was Wilyer Abreu. Now, Wilyer Abreu spent most of his time in AA, and he's currently the 21st highest ranked prospect for the Houston Astros, again, according to Baseball America. Wilyer in AA this year is hitting .249 with a .858 OPS, 15 home runs in 329 appearances. He's another outfield prospect, which is pretty good actually, because while the Red Sox have developed a really great farm system, one of the top 15 in baseball, they have had some issues with their outfield depth. So to add in a guy like this who is hitting really well for power and has some decent speed could really bolster this outfield prospect pool that the Red Sox are trying to compile together. Now, the big problem I have with this trade is, one, I loved Christian Vazquez. I really wanted him to be here for a long time, but 2, I tend to not get super excited about the Red Sox trading for prospects. And the reason for this is because of something I read a couple of weeks ago, and that is that only 10% of prospects make it to the major leagues. And of those 10%, only about 5 to 4% of those major league debuts go well, and they end up with a long-term career with the major leagues. So really what you're doing is trading away a guy who has proven that he can defy the odds and become a staple of this Red Sox team, to a guy who has about a 5 to 10% chance of being an impact player on the Red Sox. And that is what concerns. I really don't love these trades, and I really hope they do work out just for Christian Vazquez's sake. I would hate for Christian Vazquez to be traded away and then, you know, with that sour taste in his mouth, not return to the Red Sox, and these trades end up for nothing. And that is something that I fear the most. Again, I completely understand the reasoning behind having to trade away Christian Vazquez, right? A free agent at the end of the year that we probably weren't going to re-sign. It makes sense to try and get something back for him. But let's be honest here, there's always been something romantic about baseball, and one of those things is how attached you get to these players. Unlike any other season, you are playing 162 games, which means for the most part, you are getting to know these players really, really well throughout a season. And to me, that is something I've always loved about baseball. It's a good and a bad thing because, again, not every homegrown player is going to be able to stay around for a long time. Hopefully there are 2 that do, aka Xander Bogaerts and Devers, but not all of them can. So again, I really loved Christian. I really wish he would have stayed for a while. I understand the reasoning behind it, but I want you guys to let me know down below, what do you make of all these trades? Again, there are probably going to be more, but to me right now, they are feeling pretty incomplete. I think that the Red Sox need to do more at this deadline. I would be really upset if this was the extent of this Red Sox trade deadline, but I really don't think it will. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think of the Diekman trade, the Tommy trade, and the Vazquez trade. Let me know all your thoughts so far on what the Red Sox have done at the trade deadline down below. As always, if you've made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Like I said at the beginning, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day, and if you made it to the end, you clearly enjoy the content, you might as well subscribe. You also might as well hit that like button as well. It helps out these videos a ton. You made it to the end, you might as well. One more thing, share this video with a friend or a family member who loves the Red Sox as much as you do, so they can stay up to date on this deadline as well. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you tonight for the live stream, probably later today with more trade deadline news, and more importantly, in the red seats.